Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you for accepting to be part of our podcast.
Pleasure is mine.
So at Big Conversations for ordinary people, what we're trying to do is try to portray people through conversations.
Okay.
We feel like the art of conversation itself is not given the attention that it deserves because mostly we see where people converse, it's sort of a bullet point talking, interviews where you answer questions that are supposed to be well prepared. But what we try to do here is me and you, we talk.
Absolutely. A fireplace conversation.
Yeah, like a fireplace.
Okay.
Like we're talking about.
Great.
And this is what we're doing. Yeah.
Sure.
To start you off, maybe I'll introduce to some of the people listening. Mr. Tony Otoa is currently the Executive Director, Stanbic Business Incubation. But besides that, he also does a lot of business development. And he has a quite big story to tell. So let's start off, Mr. Tony. What exactly does it entail with incubation, especially at Stanbic? From my experience, and I've been doing software engineering at Makerere at the beginning of the decade, sort of last decade. From my experience, it wasn't, the banks weren't involved, right? So
Absolutely.
We did some of the stuff we did, especially around software, and we're trying to target white people who'd be interested, right? Maybe financiers from out there who think this is interesting. What does it mean to manage incubation?
Okay, so incubation, I would say we're more of an accelerator, but the same thing pretty much, incubation, accelerator. And we're trying to address one major concern. I mean, if you went to URSB, the Uganda Registration Services Bureau today, you'll find that you're registering close to 100 businesses. If you went back 2 years from now, you'll find that out of those 200 businesses, you have less than 10% that are surviving. So what we're trying to do is to take care of that problem. Why are businesses failing? Why are businesses not flourishing or sustaining themselves over a long period of time? And interestingly as well, if you know more about Uganda in terms of entrepreneurship, we have been considered several times as, one of the most enterprising or entrepreneurial country. But again, the same way we are entrepreneurial is the same way we're also very, around the area of business deaths. So what we're trying to do here is not just to incubate or accelerate, but to look at businesses and take care of three main things: access to finance, access to markets, and again, provision of suitable conditions for the businesses to thrive. Now, if I told you one interesting thing about businesses, one of the critical things that people will say is access to finance. You've just talked about the idea of creating a business and making it attractive to the finances. I've always said one thing: access to finance or access to money is the least of any entrepreneur, any entrepreneur's problems. The biggest challenge for many businesses in Uganda is the fact that they are not attractive to the financing. See, if you went into a bank, for instance, to get money, the first thing they'll ask you is for a business plan. Then they'll probably also ask you for, your service history and all of these things, your financial records and all of these things. Many businesses do not actually have that. When you speak to a guy and you ask him for a business plan, he'll point to his head saying, the plan is in the head. Now, forget about the bank funding. Let's imagine equity. We're talking about equity. You're coming to me to invest into your business. There is no way I'm going to invest in your business if I can't see the idea around how you want to make this business a great story. So that becomes a crazy thing. How do you make your business attractive to equity, to bank financing, but also venture capital funds? I'm not willing to invest in something that is stuck in some guy's head. I mean, we're so innovative. We're great with our ideas. We're great with our businesses. But when we come to accessing funding, it becomes a problem because we haven't articulated or made these businesses attractive.
Yeah. Okay. So before we actually go deeper into the funding thing, I want to first look at the other side of the business, the consumer. And from what I think the bank is supposed to be doing is providing financial services for the economy. This whole capitalism ideology works if the consumer is available and is willing to spend money on stuff that's being produced, right? But if we have this kind of innovation that's focusing, and this I think is one of the things that I also found myself when I was doing a little bit of startups. Before Uber came, I've tried to do the pooling thing, right? But what frustrated me was I had enough money on me to actually sort of pilot this, right? Without accessing the bank. but the consumer himself, this was too fancy for them, right? This was extremely out of reach. What is the bank doing, for example? I don't know if this is sort of the field you're related to innovate around that.
Yeah. First and foremost, a lot of people fear what they don't understand. That's the critical thing about, any investor will tell you, do not spend your money, use other people's money to invest or, do business. What many people do not understand, or why they say it's a bit crazy and whatever, is because of the criteria that is set about, the need for compliance. But compliance is so easy. URA history or your NSSF history, whatever. I mean, all of that comes to making your business credible and attractive, like I mentioned before. So when you walk into a bank, instead of having a lengthy conversation, again, the same conversation you could probably have with any, potential funder, it becomes an easier one because it's backed up by evidence, facts, truth, and history. But when you just show up and just say, I want money, and you have no idea for what you want to do, I ask you for your potential for growth in the next 2 years, and you say, well, we're going to still grow. I can feel it. I have a strong feeling. Think about when Corona happened or when we had the lockdown. Not many businesses were ready for that. But you see, if you plan and you have a risk assessment of your business and factor in such eventualities, you definitely survive and you stay afloat.
Yeah. So one of the other things you also mentioned was the fact that Uganda has been known to be entrepreneurial, right? And I actually wrote one of my most read articles on Medium is about Ugandans about those claims, right? From
Absolutely.
The data that I've read, I used to work with UNICEF, and I looked at some of that data. From the data that I've read, what we consider to be entrepreneurs are the fact that people don't go into formal employment, but they start small businesses, right? And these are mostly in the informal sector. Yeah. So these people, and this is what I would imagine, right? If I want to innovate around the informal sector, why is there an expectation that I have to have some sort of formal way of representing the way I look at?
So again, it goes back to how you want to grow or how big you want your dream to grow. You see, if you're informal, there's only a certain point where you can reach, and that's it. Yeah, and that's it. Where if you want to stay at that point, it's okay. You can stay informal and do your Jua Kali thing. But if you want to grow, if you're very futuristic, if you want to create the stories that speak about the Mokwano stories, starting from a small duka into a huge enterprise, you have to formalize. So again, it's really about what you want, what you desire. Now we can say, we're cottage industry and so on and so forth. But let me tell you something about the cottage industry, for instance, in Switzerland. It is small. You have guys working within their houses, but they're formal. And the ability for them to be, the greatness in the formality is that they're able to tap into greater markets. They can go out of the country. They can, if you're informal, for instance, and say you are dealing in the flower sector, you know that the craziest market for your flowers is in Europe, right? But you will need a certificate, you need all of these things. You can't do that if you're informal. So the least that you can do is to support or supply a guy who is exporting. You're not making money. So it's really about how much you really want to grow. I have no problem with you staying informal. It's like a guy saying, I don't want to go to school. Okay, fine, it's cool. You shouldn't go to school. But there's a certain point in terms of opportunity and your outlook to life that you can get. So it's quite really a personal thing. And again, I think personally, on my side, I would encourage you to be formal. You lose nothing.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I don't think the question of whether I want or don't want to get formal. I want to understand why is that bridge, right?
Yeah.
I'm a border guy. I started riding my border. I understood the business. I ran a chain of borders. I have, say, 200 borders, right? I know this because it's a business I know. Okay. Ever since I was of knowing age, this is the only thing I've done, for example. Okay. And this is hypothetical. Yeah. So I'm making money. I see there is potential for growth. Say I can get into the taxi business or the bus business, but I may need to take up a loan. I may need to get some financing from somewhere. Maybe get tech partners. But I just know how to meet you at the bar and talk to you because I've ever driven you to your home once, right? Where is that bridge? Where does the informal guy find?
So first and foremost, that border guy is going to struggle on really becoming or getting to that taxi point. I'll tell you why. First and foremost, if he wants to get a loan, he'll have to get it very expensively because it's not formal. You'll know that very many funny lending avenues, including money lenders, lend extremely high, and that is per month. If you went to a bank, it is so cheap and it's annual. So again, for your business to grow, for your business to actually survive, you have a lot of potential. But also, there's so many grants and money flying around for business support to support such enterprises to grow. But you have to be organized and formal in either an association or so on and so forth. If you're not that, the money passes you. Currently, we have a youth for business project. And all we're saying is, just be a formalized business. You don't have to register with URSB, but you can register with, your local council, and we have to see evidence of you paying your taxes or your dues, and you have access to funding. But also another thing that is interesting about such a border guy is think about him and compare him to a border guy who has formalized through entities like Safe Border. When we had lockdown, which borders were operating?
So I've actually had this conversation with my border guy.
Which border guys were operating and which border guys were making more money. And up to today,
I've had this conversation with my border guy, and he agrees that you could make more money with Safe Border.
Yeah.
But he fears, right? And this may be rational, right? He fears that they're taking power away from him, right? And for me, what I'm wondering is, how do we reach out to a guy like that? How do you take to him?
I think it's a whole paradigm shift. It's a whole mindset thing. How do you take power away from him? He has the power to switch off his app and ride on his own, It doesn't have to be logged onto the app the whole time. He can switch it off and do his own thing. But I think also what's really key is it's really about a paradigm shift. Many people think that by being formal or by being involved in a certain association or group, it kind of like it kind of like amputates that ability for them to do so much. But I'll tell you something. Let's just go to simple things like taxation, for instance. URA. Many informal business people have been evading URA for years. Now you have the tax stamps, where every item produced or every item sold has to have a stamp. The guys in Kikubu, I was talking to Issa Sekito 2 days ago, the guys in Kikubu cannot actually sell their stock, which was pre-lockdown stock. Why? Because stamps were introduced during lockdown. So if you are found your products without a stamp, you pay huge fines. But also think about it this way. They're introducing I think it's called electrical invoicing or something invoicing. And the funny thing about it is every single person, whatever you sell, even if it's 2 masks, the system has to track down that sell. And if it tracks down that sell, you have to pay your taxes. Now, if you say you want to stay informal, the system is going to catch up with you one way or another.
Do we have the infrastructure though? Because this is also the other thing that I know. The reason why Taxia is embedded a lot is because the infrastructure to collect it or to monitor it itself is not available, right? So, for example, most of the people keep all their transactions within cash.
Absolutely.
And they only bank money at the teller point, right? So the only way you maybe can try to track them is checking the bank balance.
Okay.
So
I'll again tell you something very, very interesting. It will be very difficult for you to dodge the taxman very soon. You see, with already the tax stamps, every item that is produced or manufactured has to pay some bit of taxes, including the beer, which went up by 500 shillings. But also, I think what's really key is the invoicing system. So if I am a formal entity, the Stanbic Business Incubator, there's no way I can go and buy from you if I do not have, or if you do not have that kind of system to support that purchase. Because that at the end of the day also reflects on me, who has purchased it. So in so much of a way, you find yourself in a little very rigid thing. I was also talking to some bit of traders who have said that they finally realized that it's actually cheaper for you to notify URA of your VAT, for instance, when you're bringing goods into the country. Because if you do not do that prior to bringing the goods into the country, when you get to the border point or whatever, you instantly have the domestic 15%, which is so huge on your pocket. When you go again into the market, another cost coming off. By the end of it all, you've lost so much. The Chinaman, on the other hand, will declare what's coming in and he will pay that VAT on the other side. And by the time it comes in, it's a smooth process. So again, it's really about finding this information that can change our paradigms. And a lot of these businessmen do not actually have that information. And I think it's imperative for us to now take that information to them, to support them on running their businesses.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about innovation itself, right? Trying to create new businesses from ideas you just in the world, from inspiration from out there. Yeah, I know China, for example, the technology sector in China has developed a lot because of copying a lot of work from Silicon Valley, right? Not respecting the copyright law. and trying to modify stuff they've copied. Yeah. That's an approach you could take, for example, here in Uganda, and I think it's a smart approach to take. But the problem we have here is the infrastructure problem, right? That's what I also mentioned before. So we have, for example, when I was in school, I started school in 1996, but when I was in school, we were being taught about how Museveni is going to build roads so farmers can sell crops. Yeah. So a couple of years down the road, some roads are there, some are not. But yeah, farmers are still complaining. But now we have a new service that requires new infrastructure, right? For example, these podcasts, I upload them every day to the cloud. I take about, so the audio takes about 5 hours. And, I would say I'm a bit of means, I'm slightly above the middle class. Rather, I'm slightly on the middle class line, right? Above. Yeah, so what would the normal person who wants to innovate around this new infrastructure like internet and the smart devices and all that, what would they do to create services that actually work, right? I know you mentioned Safe Border, for example. Yeah, Safe Border has a limit where it can work, not because it's not a useful service, but because, people just don't have internet in places, in other places. Yeah.
I think it really depends on what solution you're trying to create or what solution you're trying to innovate. And again, it comes back to the initial question of why are you doing this? What problem are you trying to solve? Because if you have no problem, then you're pretty much just doing a fancy thing that has no market or has no use. But I think the most important thing for me would be, maximizing this infrastructure. But how do you maximize the infrastructure? So again, it's kind of like saying we're building a road. And on that road, you're building it for people who have no cars, no bicycles or whatever. What could happen to that road is people would use that road to dry their food, for instance. I've seen a lot of people drying maize and all that stuff on the road, on the tarmac. But I think it's really about the question of how you utilize that infrastructure and how you maximize it is really about what problem are you trying to solve. Does it have the demand? Does it have a market for it? And when you start now answering it from that point, then you understand how much you can maximize that infrastructure or what other opportunities or avenues you can use. We know very well that not very many farmers, for instance, can get onto a lot of these apps that we're setting up for farmers, all of these agriculture apps. But there are interesting ways that you can actually use a normal phone to really do that using other USSD ways and all that stuff, So I think it's really about understanding what you're trying to solve, who you're trying to solve it for, and then understanding what infrastructure you can use. If I want to, for instance, trek into, say, Mount Renzori, there's no way I'm going to drive a car in there. There's no way I'm going to ride a motorcycle in there. I know what to buy or what to use to get up there.
So your advice here is that, first of all, when it comes to funding, the easiest way to get to funding is to formalize, have documentation.
Make your business attractive.
So that's a different thing. And again, I want to point to you, most of my circles are extremely informal. Yeah. The guy who does my Rolexes, his business is attractive. If I had the money, I would invest in it. Right?
And why is Musana making more money and having stores all over the place as well?
The thing about him is, again, that's the question I asked. Because for him, he thinks writing documents is boring, right? His business makes money. Yeah. His business actually makes money. It's attractive. He has a vision. If you have a conversation with him, he has a vision. He knows which spots he wants to take his business to, right?
Absolutely.
But if it would take him, say, 1 year, if you got a bank loan, or 1 year if you got partners to venture with him, he is willing to go 4 years so he can collect that money because he just thinks that the whole writing documents thing is not his thing, right?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Would you invest in his business?
I would. Yes, I would. And that's
without a plan or anything.
Exactly, yeah. Because that's the thing is, I know a few people who cannot, they have a plan. So if you say without a plan, it seems like this man is just trying to shoot randomly. But he's not. He has a plan. It's just not formally documented, right?
Yeah. You see, that's the problem. It would be very suicidal for you to put your money into such a business where you have no idea or indication of if it's making money. So the idea of him making money is his story to you about making money, right? I doubt if you have sat there the whole day to see how many people are coming to eat Rolexes and buy from him. So again, it is. I would consider it very reckless for you to jump into a situation where you're jumping into a business that, first of all, do you know how to make a Rolex?
I know how to make a chapati, but not as good as
One
him.
very crazy thing that a lot of young people, people like us, always do is when we see something that's making money, or we assume it's making money, we all jump into it. We all jump into it without understanding what it's all about. I have seen Mama Ngina doing hamburger here. She's making too many sales. I also run and set up another stall next to her doing the same thing, not knowing that probably she texts her customers or her customers text her and they deliver or they come and pick up. Now, you wonder why you're not making money from her, and then you start thinking, oh, it's witchcraft. I think it's just because you haven't understood the business. You haven't understood the market. There was a time when it was so cool. Again, this pyramid schemes and all these things where someone comes and tells you, oh, boss, we are making money. Bring 5 guys and we shall make more money. If something is so good to be true,
It probably
definitely not true.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. No. But what you're saying makes sense. First of all, yeah. But this is a people thing. This has nothing to do with formalization. And I've worked for a couple of companies in Silicon Valley, tech companies, right?
Yeah.
They have the documents, right? You read their plan, they take them, they get the funding. They actually get the funding.
Yeah.
But they have these docs, and the reason they hire people like me, for example, is because they want to, because I have experience on my CV, and I can be sold off as a senior engineer, for example. Yeah. And this helps them reach out to the funding.
Okay.
So they would come to me, get to me, so they can get a document that looks like it makes money. Yeah, a document that would convince you.
Absolutely.
That is the reason they would come to me. But if you actually go into and see what they're doing, it is a pyramid schemish with very smart people around it, right?
Okay. You see, how can I put it? It's very difficult to people are passionate about business and everything. But if you look at most innovators, despite being passionate and everything, they always get, and again, writing documents is so boring and all that stuff, but they usually get someone who understands how to sell and market the product and document it. Yeah. Look at the story. I mean, the Apple story. Look at the Microsoft story. Look at the Facebook story. I mean, we don't have to look very far. Personally, I have a group of young welders who were trained in oil and gas welding who I invested in. Okay, these guys have become formal. It's now almost about 8 months that they've been formal. Ever since they got formal, and now they're on the national supply database for the oil and gas, ever since they got formal, they are so busy making so much money. I don't know if you remember some grill that I posted some time back on social media, and it went viral. As of now, you cannot order anything from them because they're so busy until into next year. But interestingly, because of their formality, they've also now partnered with the Uganda Research Institute, URI. The beauty about that is that now it gives them access to the world. And now they're going to produce anything that we think can actually be manufactured in Uganda or welded in Uganda in preparation and as they wait for the oil and gas story. These guys, in less than 1 year, are a crazy multi-million company. If they were informal, they would still be making lots of doors and windows on a makeshift or in a makeshift arrangement. So I think you need to see the bigger picture. If you really want to grow, it's really about you. What's your vision? If your vision, imagine if Coca-Cola just had the vision of, let me just make a few nice, sweet drinks for my guys in my area of Atlanta, it would never be the same, But now Coca-Cola is in the depth of my village. You'll find Coca-Cola in any place around the world. It was a vision of growth, of growing this entity into something.
Yeah. So I guess where I'm going here with sort of this is the people we know in Uganda, that people that are willing to work, they probably haven't had the opportunity to get the kind of formal education, but they have like real life experience within the fields they work in.
Yes.
But these people, they don't have access to the formal sector. It's not very straightforward for them how they get a business consultant, for example. It's not very straightforward for them how they get safe funding from the business, from the bank and things like that. Yeah. Why aren't institutions like banks and maybe I see microfinances maybe try to do something similar, but why aren't such institutions trying to, instead of expecting these people to change their behavior, why aren't they trying to go out and
I think on the contrary, they are actually.
Okay.
You see, it's very important for you to realize that as an individual, there's a certain limit that you can, pursue your dream, your career, your business. There's a certain limit. when you are a group or an association, you can go farther. You can do bigger things. You can do more. But what's really key as well is to understand that there's so many associations which support these informal guys. So when they come together, they're able to access information, access a lot of support to get them ready. I was just talking to Casita, for instance. Casita has one of the largest number of informal businesses. But within Casita, they're able to know the importance of formalizing. They're able to get free training. They're able to get support. And now Casita has grant money from Private Sector Foundation and MasterCard, which money is supposed to go to its members. Come on, it's not, it's a no-brainer, you know. But if you just want to just sit back in your place, I agree. You know, and just lament, you can. By the way, you can lament until
no, that makes sense. I think that makes sense. But
I think it's important for you to.
So the solution here, you say, would be mostly institutionalizing. You think? If.
And you can also remember, for instance, now, like as a bank, we are going to intervene on with SACCOs. Imagine you're Boda SACCO, and you're like about 20 of you. We want to give you money at a very low rate, which is almost negligible, you know. But that's good money for you to grow, to become better, to innovate, to do more, you know. But you can only do that if you are a group, a SACCO, an association, a cooperative, you see.
Okay. No, that is clear for me. Let's switch to the consumer again a little bit. The consumer as the other party that stakeholder within the banking sector. Why don't I have access to credit? Why don't I have, me as a consumer, why don't I have a credit card, for example, right? And I would say again, I have a job, I have formal education and a job maybe a little bit beyond entry level, but sometimes I run out of my salary, right? But I don't have access. Even if I don't, I feel like my credit reputation, I've never bothered to calculate what that is, but I don't think it's bad, right? Why doesn't a person like me have access to, say, credit card? Why don't I get tough?
Why do you want to have a credit card? Because having a credit card is good, but it starts with you. Why is your credit history bad?
No, mine isn't. I'm saying
no. I know. I'm just asking the question. Because you see, at the end of the day, you need to be very, you know, finance is quite an interesting thing. I don't know if you've read The Richest Man in Babylon.
I don't.
Please do. It's a very interesting book by George Clason. And in that book, you know, he talks about the past, you know, fattening your past, fattening your wallet. And many guys come to him and say, but, you know, we can't be like Aga. Aga has made so much money. I mean, we can't be like him. We have we're doing hard labors, you know, small work. We cannot save as much as him. But it's a very interesting principle when you think about money. If you saved, let's say you're earning 100,000 and you save 10,000 every month religiously. You will have more money than a guy who's earning 20 million and is saving nothing. And again, when you now get your savings, what do you use your savings for? Do you spend them on liabilities, or do you actually invest them in other businesses that can bring you money? And also, when you're investing in those other businesses that bring you money, do you understand the businesses? Because if you invest in something that you don't understand, you're surely going to burn your money. But most important of all is, you see, it's very important, especially for us young people, to be financially independent. You know, what is it that you are doing beyond your job? Why should you run out of money, say, before the end of the month?
Again,
people who have it will have it back, and the ones who don't have it will have. It's about how you spend your money, how you deal with money, how you think about money.
I agree.
You see, when you if I think about money, personally, for me, money is just this a paper that facilitates a service, a process, and so on and so forth. So how I think about it and how I protect it and how I value it is completely different from a person who sees money as a thing to flaunt around or brag about or spend recklessly. And again, back to the point of being reckless, because you see, if you think of money as a facilitator for just enjoyments and you don't plan, you don't save, you don't think about the future, you're doomed.
Yeah, so I want to first emphasize this a little bit. I'm going to give you my example. Right?
Yeah.
We are recording this podcast, and it would make for better video if we had extra $5,000 to buy a second camera, right? But the only way we are going to get that 5,000 is we are going to wait for maybe 3 months' salary, collect the savings of that salary, and have enough money to what? to save that. Yeah. But if we all had credit cards, right, we would be able to get this immediately. Yeah. So that is the question. I'm wondering, if.
Okay. Again, it will just come down to one thing. A lot of the time, for you to start any business, you don't have to start big. Now, you see, you want 2 cameras, you want so many cameras. I don't know if you've seen my show, SME Connect. We began recording using a phone.
Yeah.
And now we have cameras and everything, and it's on urban. And, potentially we're going to get sponsors to take care of so many things. You just have to know, or you just have to like what you're doing. That's the first point.
I agree.
If you're starting, see, at the end of the day, it's the passion. I can give you the whole equipment and everything, and trust me, if you're doing a crap thing that you do not believe in, it's useless. So I think for me, the access to money and all of that, trust me,
it's not.
If you're doing something, again, it's about value. Yeah. So the amount of value that you put into your product, into yourself, into your activity that you're trying to put out there, that value attracts money.
Yeah. Okay.
You get that?
Yeah.
But if you begin with money as a problem, or you start complaining about resources, then there's a problem. Think about any of these businesses. If Steve Jobs would have loved to start with a massive factory, he would have loved to get all the credit that he can to start with a massive factory, but he began in a garage. Look at Apple today.
Yeah. So you can't start Apple in Uganda. Even if people need iPhones,
yes,
in a world where there are no iPhones, you don't start an iPhone company in Uganda because the consumers you're targeting don't have that capacity.
Then what do you do in Uganda that the consumers can have the capacity to spend?
No, you can do a Yuga roll. I see some guys who make fancy Rolexes.
And how about matchboxes?
Right? Maybe you can do matchboxes. You can do that, but for the times now, right?
Yeah.
If you are looking at, because the world is more open, it's a little bit more open than it was 10 years back, right? Right now, if I see a kid building an app, TikTok, and they're making billions within 3-4 years, and I see for sure this is something I could have built in Uganda, this is something Ugandans could have enjoyed, but the infrastructure is a limitation, My wonder is, why is it that banks especially, they're not looking at this as an opportunity to...
Again, but again, that's where you go wrong. The whole idea that financing can only come from banks. It doesn't only come from banks. I mentioned equity, venture capital funds, angel investors.
I differentiate those for me because...
So bank funding is a traditional one. You walk into a bank and you say,
get a loan.
This is my thing, I want money, and they give you money or they don't. Equity is where you come to me and say, Otoa, I have this idea, but it's my company, we have started small and whatever. I'm willing to give you 40% of the stake and you give me this money because this is where I know I'm going. This is where I can see myself going. And Otoa, I'll look at your business, I'll evaluate and I'll say, I think this thing makes sense. Okay, here's the money, give me my 40%. And I'm part of your business. So I can either contribute finance, I can contribute my intellect and all of that, my networks and all of that. Venture capital funds, you have guys who just... venture capital funds really come to businesses that or ideas, These guys who are willing to risk, because the risk in venture capital, that venture capital facilitates, is far higher than a bank or equity. So, it's a guy who just comes up with a random small idea and says, boss, this is... So me as a venture capitalist or an angel investor, I'm just like, you know what? I close my eyes, put in money, and then, support the business to become bigger, greater, and whatever, and we all make money. The problem with that sometimes, though, is because the young innovators are so desperate for the money, they will go with any investor, and then the investor, at the end of the day, takes up the whole thing. So, again, you need to be very careful. So I think for me, it's really about adding value to your product or to your thing that you're trying to sell. And then when you walk up to anyone and say, this is who we are, this is where we see ourselves growing or going or growing, what we need to get there is this. That money easily comes, you see. But you have to be able to articulate yourself. You have to be able to create a scenario, a canvas that speaks to that growth. I want to make money, but I don't want to risk my money. So when you come to me, I need it to be a bulletproof plan that speaks to my money will come back. I won't just throw money into these young guys who are just adventurous and want to play around with my, with my resources. So I think that's what I can say about that, really.
A company that I worked for in San Francisco, what they did was give you money, and why I think this is important, right? So you get your paycheck through them, something similar to what banks do.
Absolutely.
But what they do is they can give you, before the paycheck comes, they can give you a significant amount of money depending on how much you usually earn, right? So they were big. They had raised, I think by the time I left, they had raised 25 million, right? And again, because it's important for the banks, and they had raised from, I forget the name of the bank. It's a big bank in New York, right? It's important for the banks that the consumers are they have the capacity to spend, because that's how you sort the capitalism wheel runs, right? And I know right now there's a new startup. It's sort of the new financial unicorn called X1, yeah, and it's redefining how it's calculating your credit score, right? So it's not about how well you've paid back before, but how much you earn and what is your capacity to be promoted at your work, right? So
Does it use AI?
Yeah, they're using a lot of data. Okay. Yeah, they're using a lot of data as well. But it's I read about it recently. So it's one of the unicorns now. People are saying it has a lot of potential, right? But the thing that worries me is in the West, people have realized that we can be a big economy. America can be a big economy when most of the money is in debts, right? And people can still live comfortably. Yeah. But here we still have that phobia around, if I'm indebted, it sort of feels like I'm incomplete. Yeah. Things like that. Why isn't it that we have that? Why isn't it that people are enforcing a lot of people to spend, even if they're spending money that they don't have?
I think our biggest challenge is, especially for a lot of young people, our generation, is we're trying to live the American lifestyle, the American dream. You've talked about credit cards and all of these things. And what we need to understand is that these are supposed to facilitate us in our daily lives, and they're quite important, I must say. But I think ultimately what we need to be thinking about is creating wealth for ourselves beyond just borrowing, but wealth for ourselves. And that comes back to the idea of what businesses are you involved in besides your main job? What other gigs are you involved in that are also bringing in money, alternative sources of income? Because you see, when you have all of these alternative sources of income, the idea or the need for money is actually suppressed because money is actually coming to you. When you think about business, it's great to diversify. It's quite, in fact, important to diversify your business. I remember asking Bitature why, how he was going through this whole COVID phase. Protea, the two Proteas were actually closed down. Yeah. And the guy said, well, they're closed down. I have so many overhead costs, which in my opinion were going to be a bother. So I decided to shut down. However, I have other businesses that are making money, that are bringing in money. So the whole idea of diversifying creates that, you're not desperately in need to get into unnecessary debt. Debt has to be worthwhile. It has to be for something. Yeah. This whole culture of going to the bank to borrow money. I'll tell you a simple story. A guy went to the bank, one of the banks, to borrow money. And when he got the money was meant to build a school. When they went to see the school after some months, there was no school. It was actually a liquor factory. And when they asked him what had happened, the guy said, but you guy, the rate of return on this liquor factory is more than educating children. But and again, he had bought himself a new car and all of these things. It's misplaced priorities, and because now you're deviating from your purpose, your goal, the initial focus, you find yourself really getting into a lot of mess. And I think that's an unfortunate thing.
Oh yeah, no, so I think that's a good example, though. But right now, even now, there's no formal sort of credit card thing going. But for example, within my circles, right, I have a few friends who owe me money, right? So they borrow from me and I lend them because I know they're good for it, right? So he comes and says, you know what, my kid needs to go to the hospital and, COVID's a low what, give me, say, 100,000. And if I have it, I give him, right?
But is that from your personal... is that from your business money?
No. Like my personal money, my personal savings, and these are my friends. Yeah, people that I just drink with, for example, right? And I also have the same, right? So I go to say my museum, I'm like, today things are bad. You lend me 200,000 because I have a deal, right? Yeah, but I'm still thinking, and so I'm taking the risk for my friends. Yeah. My museum is taking my risk, for example, right? But I'm thinking in a structure where the banks have given us, and I'm emphasizing this a little bit, but we're going to move on from it. But if the banks are giving me a credit card, for example, right, because of how much I earn, instead of being a burden to my musei, because the more you borrow from your musei, the more it starts calculating also how much you earn, and that then is worrying that maybe I wasted my money educating this kid, things like that. But instead of doing that, instead of trying to borrow informally, because borrowing is inevitable,
absolutely,
why isn't there a structure where I go to the bank like the West does, and the West has been very good at this, where I go to the bank, apply for credit card, give my bank statement and show how much I've been earning and all the data that is needed. And then when I need that 200K, I just go swipe my card.
I think, to be honest with you, we have that already.
Okay.
We actually have that. I wouldn't want to speak about my bank because I'm not here for that today, but I must say we have that in Uganda. We have credit cards that are issued and using the same way, proof of your income, your credit checks are done as well, and you're given a credit card. That's done. That's available. But I think what I really want to emphasize for a lot of young people is, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're running a business, you need to understand that you need to have your money that is meant for investment money. You need to have money that is for your operations money for your business. You need to have a column for your personal
money as well.
Monies.
Yeah.
The problem with us is, first of all, you have no proper accounting system in your in your business. Whenever a customer comes, you put the same money in the same drawer and all that stuff, and then you'll find this random guy coming with problems. And when he comes with problems, you remove the same money, business money, to give the guy.
Yeah.
You're not sure whether he'll even come back. Interestingly, when he comes back, he might actually be coming back to ask for more. So it becomes a tricky thing. And I think we have to separate our portfolios, our finance portfolios, and it's quite key. But I also think what is really key and what's really important is for us to understand that it's important to save. Because when you save, you're saving for these kind of eventualities. Yeah. You're saving for such things that might pop up or prop up anytime. Anytime. When COVID happened, many people realized that they were not saving enough. There was a study that was done by FSDU, which came out saying that a corporate guy, my type of guy, would not sustain his lifestyle in the next month or so without earning. So the question then comes, why the hell is he spending and flossing that way? Yet he can actually reduce on his spending and just be civil.
I'm going to say I'm a victim. If COVID had gotten to my sector as well, I wouldn't have been able to survive 3 months. Yeah, but I don't think, for example, for my case that I'm reckless. I'm not hyper organized. I could mix money that I invest. For example, I run a few farming businesses.
Absolutely.
But I can mix money from, say, farming. When we've made a good harvest, I can use that on personal stuff and forget to put it back and things like that. So I understand, and I know I'm not the only one. A few people do the same, right? But the worry is, it is not possible to think that people's behaviors are going to change. And I've read also a couple of books, to sort of organize the way I do my things, organize my own clutter in the head and things like that.
Yeah.
But this is not what you'd expect if you're planning for mass, right? If you're planning for masses, people are going to be there. Guy is going to, say, get into a deal that will give him 50 million, and he won't invest that money. He will go and buy, an Audi and things like that. Because, maybe even superstitiously thinks chance comes like that and things like that. Yeah. But the why isn't, and again, I'm asking you like you have all the solutions, but
I might not have. I keep saying I'm always learning and unlearning and learning.
The thing that I wanted to is the banks. I feel like and I don't know how banks work. But if I was in the bank, there's a big opportunity, right, to informalize, to look more into the informal sector.
But I think they're doing that. I think they're doing that a lot.
From my perspective, I see the banks are sort of tailing, right? Telcos come with mobile money. The banks come with mobile money. Then they come with agents, like a few years later, right? And they're the guys who have the money, right?
Okay.
I've not seen anything that's targeting the informal sector.
I really won't delve into that because I'm not really the bank. I'm the business incubator. But I think the banks are doing that. And again, it also depends on how you want to see it. The question is, what is it that you desire from the bank? What is it that you want from the bank? How are you prepared, or have you prepared yourself or your business to get that support from the bank? Now, when you start from that point, then you can actually see how you can be, or you can then know how you can be supported and how you can be helped. I have never believed in this whole notion of there's no solution for anything. There's solutions for everything under the sky. The question is, how do you find that solution? Again, it's about information. And unfortunately for many of us, I think the information gap is quite huge, so we do not have access to this information. But there's so much information out there on a lot of these support and innovations. And again, in my thinking, I really see a future where innovation in terms of fintechs and all of this, I mean, it's going to really take over. You know, fintechs are going to take over in the sense that, I mean, banks are becoming fintechs, or banks are taking on, or banks are taking on the role of fintechs and all of these things. It's now the whole idea of being seamless and working as a, you know, a platform, not walking into a banking hall and so on and so forth. But I do believe banks are doing this, and I do believe that they are opportunities for supporting a lot of businesses. It is just, again, back to the whole idea of how you prepare. It's for instance, if I say I want to get money from some rich guy, but I haven't even prepared where I want the money or how I'm going to make that money so I can bring it back. And I mean, I walk into the rich guy's office, and what does he do? He'll turn me down, or he will say the usual thing of "We shall see."
We shall see.
I'll call you back.
Don't call me. I'll call you.
So I think that's quite key. I think gunning or trying to seek this information is key, and the information is out there.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Let's switch on a little bit to some of your history, right? So what? You're into business incubation, right? Where do you get this inspiration from? Is it a direction that was inevitable because of the education you had? Is it something
No, actually, my education is something I've never used on any single day. I am my undergrad is in international relations and law. My master's is in international law. So I've never practiced on any single day. All of that is just, you know, certificates and all that. But the knowledge is in the head, but I've never practiced. My huge background is in oil and gas. You know, I was a national content manager and at the same time public affairs manager at Total E&P for quite some time. I was part of the initial team that dealt with the pipeline when we were negotiating with Kenya initially. I've trained several businesses to get them prepared to get into the oil and gas sector. I have led the certification of so many local indigenous Ugandan businesses to, you know, move into the oil and gas sector. Me liking business is because I'm a business guy as well. I run several businesses that I've invested my money in, but also a crazy farmer. I have a farm in Lira where I do a lot of things from fish farming, goats, pigs, and huge sunflower and simsim. So I've been doing this for quite some time. Failing, learning, learning. But that's the beauty about it. You know? And then, of course, for the businesses that I've been running, I realized that doing single-man businesses was a huge thing for me, where I was not really hitting my mark. And now what I've decided to do is to invest in so many businesses, about 4 of them, rather. And in these, I am a partner, or I am, you know, either a majority partner or a smaller partner. But it's quite amazing because we're making some good money as compared to being a single man person. So again, the love for business and the love to learn has been a quite interesting one. My food logistics business is, I think, my futuristic one. It's very geared towards the oil and gas sector, where we are working with a lot of farmers and supporting food supply for not just the oil and gas sector, but food export. So I think that for me is the future. Agriculture is the future. So when you think about food, I mean...
and this is processed food, or is it...
Fresh food.
Fresh food.
Fresh food.
Okay.
So that's pretty much where my drive for business comes from. And again, for me, like I've said, it's a learning curve. I'm still learning, you know. I've just... Before I came here, I was at a an apparel company where I was just trying to think of how to get into it, but I have no clue about apparel. So it's just the whole idea of coming to sit back and think, okay, how do we make this work? How does it make money? How does it? But again, a lot of the time you'll find that when you spend your money getting into a lot of these businesses that you see that are nice and attractive, sometimes they collapse. In fact, a lot of the time they collapse. You'll find that out of 10, only 1 or 2 actually make sense, you know? So it's quite interesting to see how this happens, but that's...
Yeah, so what is the thought process for you? For example, you're doing law, right? You're doing law at school, you go and even master in law, you know, postgraduate, you do law. What is the thought process here to say, you know, I'm switching from, instead of going to court, I'm going to do oil and gas. What is that transition like?
First of all, for me, going to school was not really about me. It was just about pleasing my dad.
I see.
I moved into school 6-7 years after getting out of high school. I mean, I moved into university 6-7 years after leaving high school. And the reason was I wasn't keen on school. For me, school was a background thing. I was a town boy. My first job after Mwiri was a town boy. I used to be a town boy on the truck, taking dry fish from Masese in Jinja all the way to Mbale, and then from Mbale we continue to Soroti Kumi with dry cassava, come back to a place in Jinja called Kazimingi. I liked it. 2 years down the road, I was, my friends were at campus in their second year. I had my money, I was being paid 50,000 a week and whatever. I was bowling. I was okay. What that did for me was to really show me a different attitude towards life, different perspectives, cultures, and all of that. Then because my father was really pissed off with me and he really wanted me to get into school and this whole nonsense, I decided, let me get a decent job. So I became a journalist, a freelance journalist. And how I became a freelance journalist is another story for another day. But I remember trying to get into journalism and trying to walk into Monitor FM all the time to, record my stories and whatever. And I was always chased out. But then this one day, there was a procession, a UPC procession from Uganda House from City Square to Uganda House. And Agri Wari was leading the procession, and a student was shot, a student from UNCAT, Jimmy Higani, I think. And when he was shot, I was one of the journalists who was around, or journalist, because I wasn't really a journalist. I was just a random chap who's just looking around for crowded stories. I ran to Monitor, and that's how I became a journalist. So I go in and do the breaking, they use my clip to do the breaking news and everything. And then, of course, they asked me to become a freelance journalist. I ran to Owino with my last 5,000 shillings, buy that journalism jacket. You know the jacket with the hole?
Yeah.
So I buy that, and when I buy that, I go back on Monday. They tell me to write the story well. I don't know how to work a computer. You know how you press Q and then you look for T, and then you don't know how to go down and you call a guy to take you down. And so yeah. But in less than a year, I managed to rise the ranks. Became the youngest ever Secretary General of the Parliamentary Press Association at the age of 22. I had my office in Parliament. I was a hustler, but I was there. Never been to journalism school.
The story seems like it's also not just the hustling. Maybe you have the intellectual talent.
No, I think it's just really about trying to be the best in whatever situation you put in. And so again, that explains the reason why most of the things that I studied, I am not that. I just went into this world of oil and gas and struggled and tried my best to be one of the best, which happened. I'm now into this enterprise space and I'm still learning and trying to be the best, because my goal, my duty, my vision always is, who is the best guy in this industry? How did he get up there? And I do the same thing. I work harder.
I see.
So it's really about persistence, working harder, just trying to learn and try to be the best in the sector. So that is how I never did the law and ended up doing so much of these other things.
Well, is that a good is it template or formula to look up to people? For example, when I was still at university as well, I used to read a lot about some of the good techies, Steve Jobs and but I unfortunately never became, a big time founder. And it sort of demoralizes when, say, you read books about Steve Jobs, and it seems like I know Steve Jobs himself said, you connect the dots looking back. But when you read most of these stories, because you don't get a chance to interact with these people actually, it seems like, these guys have been living in a movie. It's like every scene has been after the other.
They say for you to make it in life, or for you to be a crazy entrepreneur, you have to have some bit of madness in you. You know, you have to do things different. You can't do things the same way. I mean, if I kept on doing things the same way, there's not so much that I can do that is better than the other guy who's doing the things the same way. The idea here is just for you to be different. And again, I think I love to emphasize the beauty of individuality, you know, really trying to add value to yourself as an individual to be able to expose and express yourself to the world in a greater way, but also offer the world something different, something greater. Yeah. We're all amazing individuals. I mean, for you to assume or for you to think that you have to be like that guy is a little bit of suicidal. I think for you to stand out as your own star is the ideal. And this again brings, you know, the whole notion of social media where everyone is struggling for the likes, and validation from the public. It's bullshit. You know, I think validation should start with you. If you feel good about yourself and you are actually the master of your ship, the rest will follow line.
How do you then reconcile the two pressures? So you have those internal pressures, you know, you have your own sort of dreams and your own drives, but then there are the inevitable drives from society. Yeah. For example, for your sake, you might hold off your parents for 7 years. Yeah, that is not, very few people get that lucky because the pressure from their parents is absolutely not ignorable, right? How do you know how to make the balance? Also, the thing is, you're not so sure about yourself. So it's easier for me to submit to the pressure of my parents because I know if I fail when I took that direction,
you can blame
it is them to blame, right?
You see, at the end of the day, the moment you come to the realization that you are in control of your destiny, everything changes. You see, I know of several friends who left school and went to study things that their parents had pushed them to study. And today, I don't consider them great in that field because they are there just because they studied it and because someone asked them to study it. A lot of the time, it's important for you to just follow your passions. And that's the reason why I admire creatives, you know, the guys in the creative industry. These are guys who have gone against the norm and said, this is what I like, this is what I want to do, this is how I feel when I do this. Yeah. The problem with you now, because you have been conditioned by society, and again, that's the problem with society. You know, society tells you, oh, this is how it's supposed to happen. But who wrote the rules? You know, no one wrote the rules. I mean, it's just you waking up and, you know, there's this story about the monkeys, you know, I don't know if you've heard about it. You know, the monkeys are put, I think, in a cage. And when they're put in a cage, they're given, you know, they throw in a banana or something. And when one of the monkeys touches, a slap or something happens. And, you know, and now they bring in, I mean, they do this to the monkeys for like about a week. They attack 10 monkeys. Then they introduce another monkey, which just doesn't know what's up. Now, this monkey, when they lower the thing, all of these ones are humble because they know there's going to be a slap. But this other one, the new one, just goes and picks up the monkey. And this guy is slapping because they're like, wait. You can't be doing that. That is the same thing with society. You know, just because someone has come with an idea, notion that this is normal, this is
how it's supposed to work.
Then you also start now thinking that that's norm. That's wrong. You see? That's absolutely wrong. So I think for me, what's really key is just doing your thing, walking your own trail, you know, walking your own path. It might be a very narrow, small path, but it is your path and you command it.
Yeah, but then the question, I think, that comes with conflict, right? Yeah. That's a very admirable sort of archetype story to have, right? I walk my own path and I'm the master of my destiny. Sort of. Yeah, but then in a scenario where you're in conflict, say with your spouse, you're in conflict, you're making a mistake, right? The future is not yet known, but the biggest societal pressure, the part of society that you care about, you know, your parents, for example, for most people, the pressure from there mostly, you know, says take the other direction. You know, how do you manage to handle that conflict without becoming someone else, without becoming, you know?
Why are you making a decision for other people? Why shouldn't it be for you?
Okay.
If it's wrong, that's the beauty about it. You will know it's wrong after that and
you fail and come back.
Right path.
Yeah.
You see, I would rather be wrong and come back onto the right path than assuming I'm on the right path and then fail at the end of it all and I can't come back to take another path.
I see.
You see? Yeah. So I think it's very important for you to realize that as a young person. But I also think what is really, really key for many young people is the need for them to really own their story, their destiny, their future, you know? And the moment you start, or the moment you do it earlier, the better. You know, if I think about my life story, I think it's because I was very adventurous from a very young age, that all of these things are happening to me right now are pretty much a result of so many combinations of things that I was just adventuring, and now I can appreciate them. Sometimes, I mean, bro, if you don't take a decision for yourself, no one can do it for you, and if they do it for you, they don't really understand you. You can take me to a well. I will drink the water. But for you, you assume I've done that guy a favor. I've taken him to.
Yeah.
No, it's like a drug addict or an alcoholic. You can't drag them to a rehab. It's until they are worn out and they know that now it is time for me to get into rehab. Then they get changed. But I think for me, at the end of the day, it's really about you. Are you making this decision because of other people, or are you doing it for yourself? The moment you start thinking about yourself, it's important. Now, another interesting thing is, you see, if this bottle is empty, you can't drink off it from me because I have nothing to offer you. If it's full, I can offer you something because it's full. What am I trying to say? If I am empty as a person, I have nothing to give you. I have no wisdom, I have no thoughts, I have no business, I have no money. I can't give you money, I can't give you my thoughts because I have nothing. So I have to first take care of myself. I have to put my wisdom into my head. I have to get money into my pocket so that if you came, it's overflowing. I easily just give you whatever I have to give you.
Yeah, I think some of the people who have conflict, say, in this sort of way of decision making is I look up to, say, someone, say my parent, hypothetically. I look up to my father. He has been, in my eyes, he has been right very many times, right? But then it reaches a time where we disagree, and this is because of me. So he says, go and do engineering at school because I did engineering. I have a company and I can employ you, but I know for me personally I'll be a better filmmaker, right? But it's a very big risk. There's a chance that I'll fail, right? And that is
which is good, you know, the fact that you are actually willing to take the risk and you know you could fail. That's the beauty about it, because that's what inspires your drive.
So then I think what you're asking people is to change because if I'm looking to be rich and maybe start a family like my father at some point, it's just rational that I do.
But why do you want to be rich like your father? Why don't you want to be richer than your father?
Yeah, I mean, okay, even if I wanted to be richer than my father, even if
I think that's what you should be striving for.
Even if I wanted to be richer than my father still, I think the path that he has set up that is tested and proven that it works.
Absolutely.
Even if it contradicts with my passion, would be the rational thing.
But you do realize that these are changing times, or these are changed times. His times are different from your times.
Yeah, exactly.
The technology is different. The ideas are different. I mean, now we are working from home. In his time, it was important to work in an office. I mean, so many dynamics have changed. And that's why I'm saying you have to give it context. And context that works for you. Not because of someone else. Like I was just saying, you know, reading all these guys or getting wisdom from all these guys doesn't actually mean that you have to be like them. What you are using that for is to, you know, get so much ingredients into your pot to become better.
Yeah. And where is the information that fuels sort of the story that motivates you to go on, right? Is it from, say, reading news? Is it from reading like autobiographies?
I'm very bad with news. I hardly watch news.
What is the biggest source of information?
I think for me the biggest source of information is, again, podcasts and listening to people who inspire me, reading books, books that matter. I'm very weak when it comes to TV news. I hardly watch TV news. I think social media is pretty much what just informs me a lot of the time, because news is so depressing. And when you think about the world right now, everyone is deep. I mean, people just, you know. And you see, when you start, let's imagine, for instance, like if I told you my routine, let's imagine you start your day just complaining and listening and watching a lot of negative stuff. Your day is inevitably going to be active. My day is very simple. I mean, I'll wake up at 5 every morning. 5 a.m. every morning.
Okay.
Meditate until about, say, 5:45.
Okay.
Run from, say, 5:46 or whatever until about, say, 6:30. After that, you know, do a little bit of body strength exercises, get myself ready for work. I'm in office by about 7:45. The beauty about that is that it organizes my mind. At that time, I'm not answering any phone calls. I haven't looked at any WhatsApps. The social media I've had probably is just putting in my quotes and my nice stuff, which I just think should inspire me for the day. But I'm very stoic because I subscribe to stoicism, and stoicism is really an interesting way of life. So I will meditate on a lot of stoic literature or stoic, podcasts or stoic audios out there. And for me, that just gets my day started. So I am positive. I have kind of bulletproof my day. The moment I put on my phone and you start talking all your nonsense, I am bulletproofed. Right?
I see.
So someone has died. Oh, sorry. Okay. I mean, they've died. So the world has to move on,
Yeah.
I mean, all of that for me just builds me up for the day. And by the time it comes to the end of the day, then of course reflect on what happened during the day. How did you impact on anyone's life? How did you become a better person at the end of the day? These for me are important values that I consider as rituals every single day.
Yeah, I think the results from such a structure are very obvious. I think that is a very good way to live. But for a person, say, who would be interested, like me, for example, when I listen to this is what I'll do. But I honestly tell you that I can't guarantee that I can do it today and over the weekend.
It's discipline. And again, you don't
How
have
do
to
I build that discipline?
It's discipline. And you start bit by bit. So you start small.
Okay.
My meditation was the hardest thing to learn.
Okay.
It was difficult for me to just sit in silence for even 5 minutes or even 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You're starting, then your mind wanders on some guy.
Yeah.
You're saying your mind wanders off on some guy. I mean, it's a learning process. You can begin with the 3 minutes, keep growing. But there's also a lot of literature and techniques out there that are available to support you. And you realize that when you have that my time, that mindfulness, you really understand your strengths. You really understand who you are. You really understand so much about your who you are.
I see.
And that and when anyone has a different opinion or perception of you, you are more bulletproof to who you are because you are mindful about who you are. You know who you are. And again, going back to your decision-making process, because you now know who you are, you can make a firm decision. You can make a bold decision because that is who you are. That's what works for you.
I've also ventured a little bit into this kind of spiritual training. I can't say I have your kind of discipline, for example, right? But I'm thinking that this is something maybe I'm one of those people who blames the rest of the world, not myself. So I'm thinking that this is something maybe that if it was overemphasized when we were young, right? I know for me, I grew up in a Catholic family and my parents emphasized going to church and praying every day and things like that. But you know,
the Holy Communion and all that.
But again, when you're young, that is more mysterious. You do it because you're scared that some guy is going to judge you when you die or something, depending on your faith. But when you look at this other kind of mental technology with meditation and all that, it's approaching scientific, right? A guy gives you instructions and it tells you what you should expect, and usually if you follow them,
not really actually. A lot of the time your meditations are your own personal meditations. The techniques, one that I was actually using or I learned off is the release technique, where you just listen to this background sound, and then after some time, say a minute or two or whatever, you chant out release, and you just feel your body. Those are techniques, but I mean, no one really instills or makes you think in a certain way. And I think it's very, very important for you to realize that, because this is you in command of your session, your activity, or whatever is going on. But the beauty about it is that it really, society today has really been messed up. Everything is trying to attract our attention. Adverts here. You enter your car, the first thing is boom, 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 boom. You get out of your car, earphones. You're talking on the phone. We have never had time to just pause, just pause.
I see.
Pause. And you see, when you pause, then you realize you're so distracted by so many useless things. And yet, same thing again. If you pause, even just for your business, you just stop to pause and analyze your business, analyze your relationships and everything. Everything can be put back into perspective.
Maybe my question was, would it have been better if we had this kind of training as part of, say, school?
I wouldn't say yes personally, because I think a lot of these things are personal things. If you went into a Buddhist territory, these are things that are inculcated into people or children, but that's their way of life. That has been their way of life for time. A lot of religions that do this has been their way of life. For someone who hasn't done it, or for someone who, that's not the norm, I can't just go to my guys in Lira and say, guys, meditation, come on, man. That would be like craziness, I can't just impose something on them. But again, it's also about choice. It's just like religion. It's about choice. What do you want to follow? What do you want to believe in? And it's just also about respecting whatever people believe in, or whatever people have choice for.
From your perspective, I see that maybe the way you see the world, and I could be oversimplifying this, is a very first-person perspective, right? Again, you mentioned the master of your own destiny, and this kind of way of looking at the world, where what happens up to me, requires again the kind of stoic discipline you also just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
But in a world where the majority of people, and I also believe that the world would be better definitely if there were more stoics, right? But the world we have me. I wouldn't call myself stoic, right?
Yeah.
We have me. How do people like me who maybe I could work towards that kind of discipline, but right now I'm pressing problems, that I need to solve. I have to save fees for my children.
Okay. But why are you worrying? You see, the problem is when you worry, 99% of the things you worry about never actually happen.
That is true.
So you're worrying, you're wasting your time. You're not focusing on the moment, you're killing your time. Let me tell you something. Yesterday is gone. You can learn from yesterday. You can learn the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone. But all you can pick from yesterday is the lessons. Tomorrow, you're very uncertain about tomorrow. Anything can happen. Did I even know how this place looked like or whatever yesterday? Hell no.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, don't even waste your time on it. Focus on the present. Because you see, the present is a huge determining factor of tomorrow. And you can focus on the present based on the lessons of yesterday. But the present is what is really crucial. Now, when you realize that, then you realize that they need to worry about so many things. They need to please so many people based on future. Oh, this guy's going to give me a gig in the future. Whatever. It's nonsense. If you add value to yourself today, tomorrow becomes so easy. Tomorrow just happens automatically.
Is there, so I've had sort of criticism with that kind of way of thinking of the now, present and now way of thinking is, maybe this is a fancy way of thinking that you earn when you get to your place, right? You've made money, you have some savings. The near future for you is, you can estimate the upper and lower bounds, right? Worst case scenario from your state, under realistic, unless, some weird random thing happens, under realistic scenarios, what to be the worst case, and you probably know what to be the upper bound. So you have this kind of space to be present today and knowing that, something bad may happen tomorrow, but I know it's not as bad as the worst case, right? Don't you think that maybe people, for example, people who, if I don't work tomorrow, they call it hand to mouth, right? People who need to wake up and participate fully in the day don't have the kind of privilege, will I call it privilege, to be here and now?
No. I think that's a wrong way to look at it, because personally what I think is everything you do today, even this thing, what we're doing right now, has an impact on tomorrow.
Yeah.
It has an impact on the next minute, it has an impact on the next hour. Everything you do in the moment has an impact on the future. If you want to stay today drinking and not saving and whatever, after 5 years of doing the same thing, what do you expect? You will have crafted your future that way.
I see.
But if you use the moment to work hard, whatever you're calling it, hand to mouth, and you're still saving some little bit of money, in 5 years' time, you're different from today. So everything you do today has an impact on
it is the impact
on tomorrow, next week, or it has an impact on the future. So again, you do not have to really focus much on the future. As long as you know where you want to go, you start now and build that day by day, inch by inch, piece by piece, until you get to that destination.
I see. Let's switch a little bit to our final conversation, which is going to be about sort of local and global politics. And you're an expert in oil and gas, right? So there are rumors right now that the industry, the rumors going around that, first of all, we're being robbed. The Ugandans are being robbed. But also the other rumors are that, earning from the industry is going to be a closed people business, a few friends and family are entitled to this thing. You know, how true are those? And if I wanted to join the business, if I wanted to gain directly from the industry, where do I
think that's hogwash. And the reason why I say hogwash is, I'll just tell you a simple story. There's a guy I know. I knew him when I was at Total E&P, and as National Content Manager, I was in charge of evaluating all bids for local content. This guy always failed at the pre-qualification stage. Nice guy, amazing Ugandan guy, and he had no future. When I joined the Business Incubator, I made sure he came through, and we trained him, organized his business from a briefcase company into a fully legit company, certified and everything. Today, he's doing work for Sinok, he's doing work for Bolore, he's doing work for the waterworks, all the way from what's the place? What's the place? Katosi, into Kampala.
Yeah.
That is just one of the stories. This is a guy who was not related to any family or whatever.
I see.
Okay? But that just goes to show you that, you see, as long as you're prepared, as long as you're ready for opportunity, you will jump onto opportunity. Our problem as a lot of SMEs or businesses in Uganda is we're waiting for someone to jump in and make money, then we're like, chikola, then you jump into it, right? Instead of preparing yourself for that opportunity. You see, opportunity is only great when you're prepared for it.
I see.
But you can have opportunity now, and if you're not prepared, you're not prepared, you know? So that's the thing. And again, it's about information. There's a lot of information now that's flying around regarding the oil and gas sector. There's a lot of information regarding the pipeline and all of these things. But what are Ugandans waiting for? They're waiting for fast oil.
Yeah, how do I filter the misinformation from the information, and what are the
right sources? The right sources.
Which
and
are
right
those
now,
ones?
there's so many right sources. The Petroleum Authority website has a lot of information.
Okay.
The Ministry of Energy has a lot of website has a lot of information. But you can also walk in there. The Business Incubator has a lot of information. The oil and gas companies have a lot of information that goes out in supplier development workshops. All of these are meant to support you on your journey in your journey in the oil and gas sector. The problem with us is hearsay, then you conclude. Where people are already being robbed. People are being robbed how? How? I mean, someone made a statement saying oil was already being taken out of the country. And I'm thinking, when did this happen? It's being taken out in trucks. When did this happen? You just need to understand the oil and gas sector, first of all. And again, it goes back to the idea of wisdom, understanding. The moment you understand, your outlook to life or the business area is completely changed.
Yeah, so I think that's quite clear. How about the pandemic, right? So this has been a hard year. 2020 has been a hard
Absolutely.
year. Some of the pastors should be giving people money back, those who promised that 2020 would be there.
But they can't give back money because they haven't been working as well.
But when talk about the pandemic and the general state of the economy, and say maybe looking at banking and oil and gas, what is the sort of, what time frame would you say would be a good time frame for recovery, for say normal recovery of?
I think recovery is already happening.
Okay.
It depends on how you think about it. You see, a crisis is a good thing. I like crisis. You see, crisis is an opportunity for you to reinvent yourself, to look out for opportunity and make it big, make money.
Yeah.
You see, you can look at a crisis and just cry, lament, and again, complain. China, man. The word crisis, Miles Monroe says the word crisis in China or Asia is opportunity. When they see crisis, opportunity.
Yeah, I know it
now,
was.
You can sit back and complain and say, COVID has really hit me hard and whatever, but that won't help you at the end of the day. And yet there are other people who are going to make use of that crisis and become big and greater and actually take over your space. So I think for me, again, it's about preparation. How are you prepared for such situations? Our economy has been hit, yes, but it's recovering.
Yeah, okay. So
it's recovering, and although it's recovering slowly, I think it's really about understanding what works for you and how you can actually make money out of it. And a lot of businesses I know have really made money out of this COVID situation. A lot of the medical companies have made some money, transport companies, and all of these guys. I mean, there are ways in which you can actually utilize a crisis to become better. I know very many people who have begun delivery companies for food and all of these things, and they're making money. They're still making money.
Yeah.
People who have adapted to the new normal. And unfortunately for some Ugandans, they've gone back to the old school way of doing things. It's like as if COVID never happened for them. It's like as if lockdown never happened. And they're expecting to make money. You see? Yeah. Someone I remember at a webinar I was officiating at on Wednesday talked about customers are not coming to my shop. How crazy can you be to think that customers are going to come to your shop in these times? How about going into using social media and take your shop to the customer? You know, and then have it delivered to the customer. But you're still waiting, customer. It's nonsense, you know. You have to reinvent yourself. And I think also what's also really key for many businesses is cash flow. You know, how are you managing your cash flows? How are you taking care of your spending in a way that is not so extravagant and stupid that will see you go down? Very, very key. But also resilience. How strong are you? How much are you pushing to stay afloat? How are you separating yourself from the other guys?
Yeah, I know for sure that you're right when you say this is like a big time to pivot. You know, it doesn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how you've been thinking about business. This is a real world. This is a time to reflect and rethink. I know the border guy that I use mostly. I call him my border guy. He's not a retainer. He's now in the business of delivering dog food.
Yeah.
Right? So because of this COVID thing, people weren't able to go to. I think most of the
Lofra and all these places, meat packers.
No. Yeah. So most of the meat packers, and also there's a slaughterhouse for chicken in Nakawa where most people would get those other
goat legs and all that stuff. Okay.
So now
chicken
that
legs,
is
rather.
his most lucrative business, and even right now the borders are open, and that is sort of the opportunity he gets. And I totally get that. It's an opportunity for some, but again, you can't underestimate how many people.
I know, but you see, it's a mindset thing. You know, the Gulf War, all these wars and whatever. There are people who see it as an opportunity to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
It depends on how you see it. I know not everyone has that ability to see opportunity.
Yeah.
But again, it's really about how you utilize that time. I think for me, crisis is one of the greatest things for me because it has a way in which it pushes me to the limit. You know, I mean, remember the time when there was a lockdown immediately and everyone was so scared about this whole thing. I mean, but it gives you an opportunity to also reflect on yourself and see how strong you are in such a situation.
Yeah.
But also how innovative you are. Think about the crisis in Japan. You know, Japan was annihilated by America. And what happened out of the crisis? You know what happened what came out of the crisis? What came out of the crisis was Toyota, Suzuki, Honda, and all these other guys. You understand?
I see.
Coming out of a crisis. Japan would have sat back and complained and said, these Americans have hit us. But they got out to become the strong power that they are today.
I say, was it, I think, Henry Kissinger who said, never waste a good crisis?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's, if you look at, say, the time period we are in, right?
Yes.
So in November, there'll be an election in the United States. We are not yet sure about the date, but say before May next year, Uganda will have an election.
I think it's February. Yeah,
I don't know if they've confirmed that, but okay. Yeah. And then 2022 as well, Kenya will also have the election, right? How is this going to, being that we are, again, recovering from this crisis, you know, how do you think this is going to tally economically?
Let me just put it to a local level. If you went to Nkrumah Road right now or Nasser Road, they're busy. They're printing, my friend. The economy is working actually full time there, man. People need to eat. So food is actually happening. People need to drink and celebrate. People are actually doing these things. Look, it really depends on how you want to look at it. But again, election time is good time for many businesses to make money. The printing business, the transport business, unfortunately for Uganda, I think the Chidongo business won't be as crazy because of the MOH, Ministry of Health guidelines. But I think it depends on how you want to look at it. I think globally, what we have realized is we still have to keep moving. We don't know how long this virus is going to be around. We can choose to live with it, protect ourselves the best way possible, you know, SOPs and all of these things, mask and everything. Or we can choose to lament and cry and blame the crisis for anything that's not going well.
Yeah, there have been rumors going around that, and in one of the groups that I'm in with my family, my extended family, and I think other people are also victims. There have been rumors going around that Africans are immune to this corona thing.
Right? No, and it's hogwash. I mean,
But
it's a
isn't
vi-
this
no.
isn't this a symptom, say, of how much we don't trust our institutions? Because I
No,
know.
it's not about trust. The problem is there's a lot of fake news and fake information going around. Corona is real.
Yeah, I know it's
Corona is
I do.
real. And I think it would be foolish for you to say it's not. I mean, I've seen a lot of people in America and whatever saying it's fake and end up dying after 2-3 weeks from the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's real. Africans definitely get it, and I think we just need to take care of ourselves, protect ourselves. This is real. It's as real as it can get, and we just have to do our part by playing safe and staying safe.
Yeah, so globally right now, in the US, there's been a lot of chaos around Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of aggression and counter-aggression, the police brutality and racial tension and all that, to most people that I've talked to, this looks like a time for Black people to shine. I know one of my friends called it the victim prestige. Is it... I think he called it something like that, where you get more points for being a victim, right? Do you think maybe we are lucky that this is happening at this time as Black people, or?
I don't really want to say much about Black Lives Matter. I think I would actually bring it back to Uganda, or Africa, where we have our own problems. I think it's about really, first of all, understanding our own problems. Because if we Black people are doing, injustice to our own Black people, I think that's a crime.
Then the racial thing
I think if you think about how many Africans probably go and sleep hungry or are not going through the best life because someone was corrupt enough to steal from them or steal them. I mean, that for me is more pressing actually than and closer to home. So I think for me, all time is the right time to be cautious of how we relate, especially with the ones who are underprivileged. People who are underprivileged do not have access to so many things that we might have, and I think it's all about empathy. How do we support them to be able to be listened to be heard, to be to express themselves? That for me becomes a very important thing. So overall, I know globally there was a whole, Black Lives Matter, and in Uganda as well, there was a whole Black Lives Matter campaign. But hey, we have problems here that we first of all need to tackle, and I think it's very important because in Uganda, I mean, would you want to call it black on black? So I think we need to just have a situation where we think about humanity. Let's think about ourselves as people who are in this world together. Empathy being very crucial, and taking care of one another.
Yeah, and I think that also brings the question of the local identity, who do we and this I bring up, and I understand that it's not directly related to Ugandans, but because most of our popular art is American art, basically. Most of the music and the movies we watch, music we listen to and the movies we watch is American. We don't have the kind of strong local identity as Ugandans, and is that something you think we can build?
Isn't it a better time to actually grow this? Because I think it's very important for us to one, preserve our culture, preserve our thoughts, preserve our literature, preserve a lot of things. And I think the industry is growing. I mean, let me just use an example of your podcasts. We hardly had podcasts in Uganda 5 years ago. They were very much American. Yeah. Now we're having African content, we're having Ugandan content. So I mean, it's imperative on us to actually toe the line and do it ourselves, or do it for ourselves. Otherwise, no one is going to come and tell you, want to write a book about your Lango culture, and no, you have to be the storyteller. And I think right now we have what it takes to tell our own story, and that's what really matters. It's about us,